Go into the world and tell every man that you meet, there is a man on the cross.
A Catholic Take. What you need to know right now. A bold synthesis of inspiration and information. Keeping you up to date on the news and issues from a courageous Catholic perspective.
A Catholic Take with Joe McLean starts now.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean. Praise be to God. It's great to be on with you. Hey, here's the question. What does Luce, the Vatican enemy Jubilee mascot, and the Dragon Girl have in common? Both are created by the same person. That's right. We took good, hard-earned donor dollars at the Vatican, and we gave it to somebody who makes porn art. Let that sink in. We're going to be talking about Luce and the Synod that won't stop giving today. We'll not only cover what this anime story really is, tone deaf anyone, but also let's talk about the Synod on synodality. And it seems like that's the gift that keeps on giving. It just won't stop. We're going to have Matt Gaspers on the team at 30 past the hour to talk about the Synod's final document and the implications thereof. And Dr. Anthony Stine is going to be on the team to talk about Luce, the anime character, to help usher in the Jubilee Year. We've got all of that on the show today, plus a lot more. We're going to be linking to the show notes for you at thestationofthecross.com/ACT. And tonight is the fourth session of our Bible study series. We're going to be covering Abram and the three promises that become three covenants that are fulfilled in Jesus Christ. That's coming up tonight. Don't miss it. You're going to want to be there, especially on Genesis 22, the Akedah. This is going to be a great time. I can't wait. That starts at 6:30 p.m. Central, or you can join us. You could by watching the recording of the video, which I send only to the ACT Insider on the email list. So you got to get on the email list to get in. Go to thestationofthecross.com/ACT and smash the email sign-up list there. It only takes one moment for you to allow me to harass your inbox. Praise be to God. It's going to be a good thing. Again, thestationofthecross.com/ACT. Let's pray. Let's jump in. We have a lot to get to. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And now your saint of the day.
Saint Marcellus the Centurion, pray for us. Marcellus was a Christian centurion in the Roman army. In the year of our Lord 298, he and his legion were serving in what is now Tangier, Morocco. The birthday of the Emperor Maximian was being celebrated throughout the empire, with many solemn sacrifices offered to the pagan gods. Marcellus, who would normally lead his men in these sacrifices, instead cast down his equipment and symbols of rank and publicly proclaimed himself a Christian. He was imprisoned until the festivities ended, and then taken before the judge. Marcellus confessed to disobeying the emperor and continued to proclaim his Christian faith. He was then sent before a strict military official for punishment. Marcellus reaffirmed his actions, and the Roman official sentenced him to death. The court secretary, Cassian, was so angered by the sentence that he refused to record it and strongly denounced the injustice. He was imprisoned and eventually martyred himself, and is mentioned on December 3rd. Marcellus was taken out and beheaded, and his relics were eventually brought to Leon in Spain. He is thus patron of that city and province, as well as of conscientious objectors. For more about this day and others in the Church's calendar, visit thestationofthecross.com/saints and seasons. Saint Marcellus the Centurion, pray for us.
And now your headline news. A LifeSite News is reporting Vatican Commission says Church has deficiencies in handling abuse cases. In its 10th year of existence, the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors issued its first report, assessing the Catholic Church's procedures and policies regarding safeguarding for children and vulnerable persons. Prefect Cardinal Sean O'Malley spoke about the past 40 years as a, quote, deceitful period where church leaders tragically failed those we are called to shepherd, close quote. One of the curial bodies examined is the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, saying its, quote, lengthy canonical procedures and lack of transparency can be another source of re-traumatizing for victims, close quote. Might I suggest that taking 10 years to write your first report might also be a part of the problem instead of the solution? Just saying. Breitbart reports Harris surrenders in North Carolina. Kamala Harris is apparently waving the white flag in North Carolina as her campaign withdraws nearly $2 million in planned ad buys from television stations nationwide, or statewide rather, 1 week before the election. More than 3 million people have already voted early in North Carolina, which can be done via mail-in absentee ballot or by in-person locations around the state. Republicans, for the first time ever, actually lead the early vote. This is remarkably consistent. GOP lead has shocked political observers and come as demographic data and also suggests Democrats face serious issues in competing at the top of the ticket in the state. A Catholic news agency reports Ohio Archbishop ends long-standing Girl Scouts partnership because of gender ideology. This is good news. The Archbishop of Cincinnati is ending a 110-year relationship with Girl Scouts of the USA due to the group promoting gender ideology contrary to Catholic teaching. Archbishop Dennis Schnur announced that pastors in the Archdiocese must discontinue any partnerships with the Girl Scouts of the USA by December the 25th. Schnur noted that GSUSA has embraced and promoted an impoverished worldview regarding gender and sexuality through some activities, badges, and resources. GSUSA and its local chapter in Ohio has, quote, contributed to normalizing asexual and gender ideology contrary to Catholic understanding of the human person, made male and female in the image and likeness of God, close quote, he noted. That is good news indeed, praise be to God. And those are your headline news. The gospel today comes to us from Luke chapter 13, verses 22 through 30. And Jesus went through the cities and the towns teaching and making his journey to Jerusalem. And a certain man said to him, Lord, are they few that are saved? But he said to them, strive to enter by the narrow gate, for many, I say to you, shall seek to enter and shall not be able. When the master of the house shall be gone in and shall shut the door, you shall begin to stand without and knock at the door, saying, Lord, open to us. And he answering shall say to you, I know you not whence you are. Then you shall begin to say, we have eaten and drunk in thy presence, and thou hast taught in our streets. And he shall say to you, I know you not whence you are. Depart from me, all ye workers of iniquity. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth when you shall see Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all the prophets in the kingdom of God, and you yourselves thrust out. There shall come from the east and the west and the north and the south, and shall sit down in the kingdom of God. And behold, they are last that shall be first, and they are first that shall be last. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Whew, this is could you imagine just looking at the Son of God, the incarnate Word, looking you in the eye and telling you you're going to be cast out? Like, just take that scene in for a moment. Can you imagine what that might be like? The kingdom of God has come upon you, and he's telling you you're going to go into the weeping and gnashing of teeth. Yikes. If your heart doesn't drop on that one, I don't know what's going to cause you to pay attention. It's time to get sober here. The great commentary of Cornelius a Lapide says, Then said one unto him, Lord, are there few that be saved? Christ answered in the affirmative that few should be saved, as St. Luke signifies and St. Matthew plainly states. Isaiah speaks to the same effect in 10:22. Understand few by a comparison of all the inhabitants of the whole world, or of the faithful with the unbelieving, for all the latter are condemned for their unbelief, and equally many of the faithful for their wicked lives. The faithful alone are saved, and not all of these. But whether the greater number of them are saved or lost is the question. Some think that the greater number are saved through the holy sacraments, which very many of them only receive at the end of their lives. This is Cornelius Lapide speaking. Others think that most are lost because they live in a state of mortal sin. The rule of St. Augustine is that as men have lived, so they die. Do you live a secular life? Are you mostly worldly? Let that sink in. You need to ponder on these words today. St. Augustine makes this clear. As men have lived, so they die. If you live like the world, you will die like the world. Father Haydock wrote, these words are addressed particularly to the Jews, because Christ was born of them according to the flesh, eat and drank with them, and taught publicly in their streets, but they apply to us Christians also. For we eat the body of Christ and drink his blood, when each day we approach the mystical table and we hear him teaching us in the streets of our souls. Many, very fervent at the beginning, afterwards grow lukewarm, and many, though at first frozen, have suddenly glowed with virtue. Many who in this world were contemned have received glory in the next, while others in honor amongst men have passed to eternal torments. Father McKeevely says, strive for a life of holiness and virtue, because you don't want to be on the outside where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. Hell is forever, my friends. Don't go there. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Did you know you can help evangelize simply by using your cell phone? The Station of the Cross is partnering with iCatholic Mobile, America's only Catholic mobile phone company. When you join iCatholic Mobile, a portion of every dollar will support our programming. Plus, you'll enjoy great service with iCatholic Unlimited 5G data, text, and talk. With iCatholic Mobile, you can stay connected with family and friends while also spreading the truth of Jesus Christ with clarity and charity. Join today at iCatholicMobile.com.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. Praise be to God. Hey, coming up at 30 past the hour, Matt Gaspers, managing editor over at Inside the Vatican, is going to join us. We're going to be talking about that final document coming out of the Synod on synodality. It's the Synod that just won't stop, no matter how hard we try. It just keeps giving, even though we don't want it to. We're going to be talking about that final document is saying what it's not saying. What are the loopholes and the pits of danger that we should avoid? All of that with Matt Gasper coming up at 30 past the hour. Do join us if you can. I don't know if you saw the anime character mascot that the Vatican paid good money, good hard-earned money to make. They paid a guy who happens to also create pornography images. Just let that sink in for a second. This is of all the people on planet Earth we could have chosen to make an anime version of a mascot for the Jubilee Year, we chose somebody who makes art for porn. Here to talk about that is Dr. Anthony Stine from Return to Tradition. Dr. Stine, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Oh, you forgot that he also makes Pride Week or Pride Month propaganda too.
Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. What was I thinking? I don't even know what I'm doing here. Like, good grief.
I actually think they saw. There's that cynical part of me that thinks they saw the Pride Week stuff on his in his portfolio, his artist portfolio, and was like, "Oh, there's our guy. There's our guy."
It's very interesting to see the commentary coming out about Luce. I didn't bite on it right away. I mean, just my initial reaction looking at it is, okay, great, it's silly. Like, it's silly. It's made for kids. This doesn't seem serious to me. Like, what are we doing? Like, this is another one of those. And I think this is the point that you made on your video and your YouTube video we're going to link to in our show notes. It's just tone deaf. It's another shining example of tone deafness coming out of the Vatican. Mm-hmm. They seem to have no real concept of how things are perceived by the general public. And it blows my mind. Now, I want to point out that J.D. Flynn over at The Pillar, he double, tripled, and quadrupled down in his piece. We're going to link to it as well. I like Luce, he says. He likes Luce, and he wants us to chill out. What in the world could actually be the problem with this, Dr. Stine?
I think it was Professor Ed Feser. I don't know how you pronounce his name. He on X pointed out that the fundamental problem here is that there's a difference between being childlike, as the Bible commands us, and being childish, which, by the way, in case people don't know this, being childish as an adult is actually explicitly condemned in St. Paul's letters. You ever go read 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11, the famous, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. That image is childish. It is. It is. I had a comment from one of my viewers said that they showed the image to their kids, and their kids thought it was lame. Their words was that their children thought the thing was just bad.
That's funny.
It was mostly the people coming to the defense of this thing are the young, very online anime fans, who are usually young men. Now, the church, it can be argued, has a young man problem, and so they need to reach out to the young men. Fine, but you can do so without resorting to childish things. I've at first on Twitter, I was like, oh, I don't know, because people are pointing out some questionable parts of the image that might be demonic or whatever. The thing is childish, made by someone who promotes degeneracy, absolute moral depravity. Why they hired the guy is just another, in a church right now where we have a problem with Rupnik and Principi and these others being protected, hiring a degenerate to make art is not that surprising, to put it in the bluntest terms possible.
When I first saw it, again, I thought it was childish. I also thought it was maybe like I didn't read the story when I first saw it, starting to make the waves online, and I thought, well, maybe there's a cartoon. Maybe this is a cartoon that they're helping, to promote or something. Maybe they've helped to commission a cartoon that will reach little kids. I mean, fine, fair enough. We're gonna create content for children. I don't have issues with that. I mean, I think there's some good content on formed.org, for instance. It's very good for kids. So then I heard, wait, hold on. They mean this for adults? Like, that's just bizarre. For instance, I can be very critical of adults that play video games. I just don't think that's sober and serious. I don't think adults should be doing certain things like this. And so to try to appeal to adults, even young adults, with childish characters, to your point a minute ago, it doesn't seem sober. It doesn't seem serious. It seems surface at best. There's no depth to this. If we're really going to be asked to go on a pilgrimage, a journey in the Jubilee Year, a spiritual pilgrimage, to dive deeper into our faith and to our understanding of what the Catholic Church teaches and how that applies to our life and our surroundings, is this their best bet to get us there? This seems surface at best, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's extremely shallow, and that's kind of it's one of the problems. It's the reaction you saw to it from people who are just tripping over themselves to defend it was that the church has endorsed my shallow thing that at some point I might just lose my taste for and walk away. People's taste in pop culture things tend to diminish over time or change as you get older. So but people were so clinging to it that it was the strangest thing ever. And the pop culture thing is kind of another problem with this. The archbishop behind this thing said that it was to get the church into the pop culture that the youth are so connected to. I'm like, a newsflash, since the beginning of the 20th century, at least, young people have really been into pop culture. It's just a product of modernity, is popular culture. But usually the church would say, if you're going to be connected to pop culture in some way, maybe you should keep it at least at an arm's length a little bit, be discerning on what you're consuming, some warnings that go with it, because pop culture can sometimes be neutral, but sometimes, all too often, pop culture is not neutral. We see this in how the church warned about the use of Hollywood films in previous generations. Yeah. And priests sometimes warning people, maybe specific genres of music aren't a problem, but you tend to notice that in some genres of music, you get a lot more bad, say, music than others. Now it's, the kids like this thing. Hello, fellow kids, here's your anime. Which seems to be kind of a problem.
You know, it makes you wonder, do they really think that if we create some anime cartoon character, people are going to all of a sudden go, oh, wow, I love the Catholic faith, I should start living it? I mean, is that really what's going to get it done? I mean, if that's true, then why didn't we do this sooner? It seems crazy to me. The world doesn't seem to be getting more Catholic. It seems to be going in the opposite direction. But maybe this will solve the problem. Now, I do want to point out some of the elements for those listening if you're listening on radio right now. If you've not seen the picture, I'll link to all these articles for you. But let me just describe to you. This is a character, a short anime type style character. I'm not into anime, so I don't know what the verbiage is for this. But it's a small body with a big head, wearing a yellow rain jacket, blue hair with seashells in the eyes to represent the pilgrimage aspect. A rosary hanging around the neck with colored beads. Some have seen that as the color of the rainbow, others not so much.
And it's not the rainbow. They're the wrong colors of the rainbow. It's actually the missionary rosary from Fulton Sheen. I will defend that aspect of it, even though you're not supposed to wear a rosary as a necklace.
Right. There's that. Okay. So then there's the logo on the rain jacket for what is it? The Synod and Synodality, which is very interesting. And then there's the staff that some are saying looks very occultish like. And then there's the green boots that have mud on them. Obviously, this is a person who is walking through the mud and on a pilgrimage and on a journey. So none of the elements, I think, in and of themselves are that problematic, save maybe the staff. But I think I take your take on that, Dr. Stine. I'm not looking too far into that. How about you?
At first, I was like, yeah, it does look like a stang. But the more I looked at it, I was like, I don't think, covert Satan worshipers in the Vatican, if such people exist, are going to be doing things like publicly signaling their covert Satan worship. That would sort of be self-defeating. I would point out, though, in the response.
How many times have we gone on a hike and just picked up a stick off the side because it looked cool? I mean, I don't have an issue with the stick, I think.
There's the old joke that one of the things that men like is they find a cool stick and then they just kind of, gravitate towards it, right? It goes back to our childhood.
Right.
But I will point out one thing about this, that the response to it, I got called a heretic and a traitor online by the defenders of the same by saying that I didn't like it. There's something disordered.
You're required to, under pain of excommunication.
to like the kitschy marketing gimmick of the Vatican that looks like the Hello Fellow Kids meme for the 21st century. That's what it really looks like. That old Hello Fellow Kids, how do you do? If it's got Steve, you've seen that meme, right? Steve Buscemi with the rock band t-shirt on and he's got a backwards hat on. He's got a skateboard in his hand. He's like 60 years old. Hello Fellow Kids. That's what this looks like. It really does.
It's creepy. And think about the optics of that. The church. I mean, I just read a news article that Cardinal O'Malley's, commissioned to investigate the church and her procedures for handling abuse cases. The church has paid out billions with a B, billions of dollars of donated money from the lay faithful to settle abuse cases they focus mostly on minors while ignoring the abuse of seminarians and adult males for some odd reason. I don't know why they do that, but they do. Nonetheless, billions with the B they've paid out to abuse cases. And it's like the creepy guy, pulling up with the candy. Hey, kid, you want some candy? Like the optics of this alone are not good. Again, going back to that tone deafness coming out of the Vatican. If they're really interested in reaching the young people, might they get like a Orthodox young person at the Vatican who understands maybe some of these optics and help them navigate them? Because they seem like every time they try something, it just seems to fall on its face.
Yeah, and that's something I pointed out in my live stream on this yesterday, where we have the Principi case right now. You've got the Rupnik stuff going on. I encountered people online pushing back, saying, "Oh, well, the sex abuse stuff, the clerical sex abuse story is ancient history now. That was 20 years ago." I'm like, that's still going on. It's still happening. That's why Francis feels like he has to, as Pope, step forward and say, "Oh, hey, by the way, we're taking this seriously," constantly, because there are still reports of this stuff happening all the time, and it does look tone deaf. Now, is the problem the same as it was 20 years ago? No, it's not. It seems that the bishops are the most permissive about their priests having certain kinds of things in their backgrounds, have tightened things up at least enough that it's better, it's improved, but the problem is still there. It is still there. And this does look incredibly tone deaf. And I almost felt like the archbishop who was promoting this kind of knew it too. So you look at his body language in that press conference, he looked almost kind of embarrassed to have this weird little anime statue thing on his desk.
Right. He probably did. I feel bad for the guy. Like, he's like, how did I get this job? How am I the guy that has to be up here to show you this doll? I mean, it just feels absolutely silly. And I don't know what else to say about it besides that. We need sober and serious responses to the difficulties and tragedies in this world that's getting darker by the day. And this is our effort. And what's worse is we're paying a guy who makes porn art to create this for us. Now, listen, I'm a sinner. I go to confession very regularly. So I understand that we're not perfect. But this guy's not repentant. He's not contrite over his efforts to corrupt souls through his participation, his direct participation in pornography. I'm sure he's very proud of it. He's made a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Why are we giving him money? We have choices, people, and this shouldn't have been one, but it is. And I guess it just chalk it up next to the Rocket Man biopic. I mean, just bad use of donor dollars. At any rate, Dr. Stine, grateful for your insight and sharing the story with us on your YouTube channel. I'll be linking to that and more in the show notes if you want to come back for the after show. We'd love to have you. Coming up after the break, though, Matt Gaspers is on the team. Let's talk about the Synod document, the final document that leaves the door open for female deacons again. All that and more coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain, and here are your headline news. CNA is reporting Texas nuns dismissed from religious life after a lengthy feud with Bishop and Vatican. Mother Maria of the Incarnation, the president of the Association for Christ the King, said in a letter to the Diocese of Fort Worth on Monday that the nuns of the Monastery of the Most Holy Trinity in Arlington, Texas, have tragically been dismissed from the Order of Discalced Carmelites and reverted to the lay state after more than a year of sustained defiance of the superior. Mother Marie said that the nuns' repeated defiance included denying the authority of the Vatican's dicastery of the Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life, as well as denying her own authority and the local bishop. Daily Wire reports J.D. Vance to go on Joe Rogan's podcast. Republican Senator and Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance is set to record an episode with podcast giant Joe Rogan this morning, just days after Rogan's episode with former President Trump dropped and quickly generated tens of millions of views. This goes to show that the era of the podcast apparently has reached its height. Back in my day, get off my lawn, you whippersnapper, there was only radio and television, but now it's podcasts too. Catholic Herald reports Puerto Rico Archbishop demands an apology from Island of Garbage joke at Trump rally. Archbishop Roberto Gonzalez Nieves of San Juan de Puerto Rico has demanded that Donald Trump issue an apology after a comedian delivered what many have condemned as a racist joke at a campaign rally for the Republican presidential candidate. Comedian Tony Hinchcliffe was among 30 speakers to warm up the crowd at Madison Square Garden on the 27th of October. In remarks that he has drawn widespread criticism for, Hinchcliffe said, quote, "I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. I think it's called Puerto Rico," close quote. Amid the controversy, the Trump campaign has distanced itself from him. However, President Joe Biden went on air yesterday and said that supporters of Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump are garbage for backing such an unconscionable candidate, close quote. And those are your headline news. You gotta love the tit for tats. Boy, oh boy. Good times we live in. Speaking of good times we live in, I'm not sure if you caught the final document that was issued for the Synod on synodality. It came out over the weekend, of course, as they wrapped up and concluded their festivities. 3 long years of pain and suffering. The Synod that just won't stop. No, seriously, it won't. We tried. It just won't stop. And now the Pope has even said that he's not planning to issue an exhortation based on the document. He's just issuing the document, which means it becomes part of his normal magisterium. We've invited Matt Gaspers to be on the team today to talk to us about this and figure out what is in it and what we should be on the lookout for. Matt, welcome from inside the Vatican. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Joe. It's good to be back.
So let's talk about this final document. Let's just start with the fact that he's not issuing an exhortation over this. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, it's certainly been his modus operandi to issue a post-apostolic exhortation of some kind, like we had Amoris Laetitia, most infamously after the family synods, and then also after the Synod on Youth in 2018, the Amazon Synod in 2019. But I think everything he's been working for, a lot of it is in this document already, and I can explain what I mean by that. From the beginning, I think what this whole Synod on synodality has been about is ultimately ecclesiology, which is the branch of theology that deals with the nature and constitution of the church, and specifically the ecclesiology of Vatican II, as it is called in an official Vatican document from 2018. That's really what's being pushed here, in my opinion. That's kind of the overarching narrative that goes beyond particular agenda items like female deacons or all the LGBT stuff. It's ultimately about trying to change the church itself.
A lot of people are thinking that the document leaves open the possibility for the Synod on synodality to really continue. We saw that immediately within hours after its issuance, Cardinal Cupich, Cardinal McElroy in the United States, basically wanting the USCCB to set up and fully fund a committee to ensure that synodality can continue in the United States. Does the document sort of leave it open for the synodal process to just be indefinite?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that the whole, just like at the end of an ecumenical council, then you have an implementation phase. We're going to see the same thing with the Synod on synodality. I forget where it discusses that in the document itself, but I know that I've seen that. I've heard Pope Francis talk about it, that now we're going to be entering the implementation phase of the Synod on synodality, where they're going to try and make all of these recommendations, like implement them basically, including possibly changing canon law to, so they're very serious about this.
Wow.
That's what it says in the final document.
Okay, so the Pope does not issue an exhortation. He just issues the document. It becomes part of his normal magisterium. So is he basically saying at this point, everything in the document he's fully on board with and wants to be implemented? Because normally the exhortation would indicate what he does want implemented and what he doesn't, so that we have to conclude then that he wants everything in the document.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable conclusion. I was going to pull up, if I can, real quick. He issued a statement, his final words, so to speak, in the last session of the Synod. Let me see if I can pull that up here real quick. He said, "Dear brothers and sisters, with this final document, we have gathered the fruits of at least 3 years in which we have been listening to the people of God in order to better understand how to be a synodal church at this time." And he said, he reflects on a few different points that he considers significant. And at the end, he says, or actually somewhere in he said, oh, here we go. "So for this reason, after reflecting on these things, I do not intend to publish an apostolic exhortation. There are already highly concrete indications in the document that can be a guide for the mission of the churches in their specific continents and contexts. That is why I am making it immediately available to everyone. In this way, I wish to recognize the value of the synodal journey accomplished, which by means of this document I hand over to the holy people of God." And then we enter into this implementation phase that he's mentioned repeatedly.
That kind of seems to play into the whole giving sort of the decentralization of authority theme that we saw in this latest round of the Synod on synodality, where they tried to pull a fast one and get these Episcopal conferences empowered to overrule the Vatican on the implementation of doctrine. It had a huge pushback, even from the Synod delegates on the floor, which was good news, praise be to God, rightfully so. But it seems like that doesn't matter because they still include it in the document. And what you just read to us seems to indicate the Pope is saying, hey, guys, who am I? There's good stuff here for the church. Let the church decide. Like, that seems problematic.
Yeah, I was going to try and find the specific statement because I was very concerned about that as well. The notion of giving what Francis calls in his initial papal document, Evangelii Gaudium, quote unquote, genuine doctrinal authority to episcopal conferences. So we find this mentioned. Thankfully, the language is a little bit toned down in the final document. This is number 125. It says, Episcopal conferences express and implement the collegiality of the bishops in order to foster communion between churches and respond more effectively to the needs of pastoral life. Based on the outcomes of the synodal process, we propose the following. And just how this document is phrased, I mean, it makes a bunch of proposals, recommendations. So obviously there's going to be an implementation phase now. The synod is really not, the meeting in Rome is over, yes. The synod on synodality, unfortunately, is going to continue for who knows how long. But here are some of the proposals. It says, to gather the fruits of deliberations on the theological and juridical nature, or statute, rather, of episcopal conferences, or status, I should say, to specify precisely the domain of the doctrinal and disciplinary competence of episcopal conferences. Now, what I find interesting is that John Paul II in 1998 basically already did that. He already fulfilled the task. He issued a motu proprio called Apostolos Suos, in which he discusses all of this at great length. And he ultimately concludes, if I can find that document real quick. So at the end of it, after kind of giving the theological explanations, rationale, he ultimately says, in order that the doctrinal declarations of the Conference of Bishops referred to in number 22 of the document may constitute authentic magisterium and be published in the name of the conference itself, they must be unanimously approved by the bishops who are members or receive the recognitio of the Apostolic See if approved in plenary assembly by at least 2/3 of the bishops belonging to the conference and having a deliberate vote. So there it is right there. Like, there's no need for further discussion. It's already been dealt with. So I don't know,
scary.
Obviously they're trying to push beyond that, obviously, in some way, but it's already been dealt with.
Imagine what some of these conferences in Germany are going to do, let alone Chicago, the local, because once you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile, and they're going to think, okay, well, if the bishops' conference, if the USCCB can act synodally and decide how doctrine is played out and overrule the Vatican's interpretation of certain, multifaceted cultural whatever gobbledygook language they want to choose, well, then the local conferences can also choose that, can't they? I mean, golly gee whiz, the cat is out of the bag. So now it's going to be the regional conferences, not just the USCCB. It's going to be the regional ones, and then it's going to be, it's going to be the local dioceses. They're all going to choose this authority for themselves. And now we no longer have one central interpretive authority for Holy Mother Church. We have a billion versions, all making it up as they go, trying to apply it to the local cultural experience or whatever. It just seems more gobbledygook. And then you couple that with what seems to be yet another push for more changes to the liturgy to become more participatory. I mean, there's a lot of examples of horrible masses being said out there that are awfully participatory, and they're not doing any favors for us as a body of Christ. They're probably harming us in many ways, and yet they want more of this. Who wants more of this exactly? It seems crazy to me.
Yeah, my friend Diane Montagna, a Vatican journalist, brought this up during the final press conference on the evening of October 26th when they were presenting the final document. And she asked Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich, who was one of he's been the relator general, kind of the liaison between the Synod of Bishops' office and the Synod delegates themselves, kind of running the show, the stage manager, you might say, for this latest meeting. And she asked him during this press conference, because the final document in paragraph 27 calls for the adoption of, quote, celebratory styles that make visible the face of a synodal church. Yeah. And she asked for clarity as to what that actually means, because it's obviously very vague, which he more or less acknowledged. he didn't really have a clear answer for what that might mean. Here's what he did have to say. Well, before I get to his answer, I also want to specify paragraph 27 also calls for the establishment, quote, the establishment of a specific study group to which would be entrusted reflection on how to make liturgical celebrations more an expression of synodality. So this would probably call to mind the 10 special study groups that already exist that are handling the hot button issues like ordination for women and LGBTQ, whatever matters. So having a special study group devoted to the liturgy is kind of a scary thought. What do they have up their sleeve? Right. But here's what Hollerich said during the press conference. He said, so we have a liturgy, the one of Paul VI, referring to the Novus Ordo, the Second Vatican Council, and of course, small things can always be changed, can be adapted. The fact is that many people have written that they had problems, that sometimes the liturgy did not speak to them. So we have to take it serious. It has to be seen. It has to be studied.
Oh, my heavens. The liturgy must speak to me. I am the center of the universe, and it must speak to me, or else. Let that sink in. Yeah. And we're talking with Matt Gaspers from Inside the Vatican. He's managing editor over there. InsideTheVatican.com is the website. We'll put a link to it in the show notes for you. About the Synod on Synodality and their final documents, I still want to talk about the James Martin crowd and female deacons. Coming up after the break, we'll have that conversation with Matt Gaspers. Do us a favor, though. Share us with a friend. We'll be right back. More ACT is headed your way next. To Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. Praise be God. It's great to be back on with you. Hey, can I just give a special shout out to our good friends at iCatholicMobile.com, sponsor of what we do here at the station of the Cross Catholic Media Network and iCatholic Radio. Do you have a cell phone? That must mean you have a cell phone bill. Did you know that a portion of your bill could support us directly right here at the Station of the Cross, help support Catholic media? Let's try to raise awareness. Let me tell you, in the world of Catholic radio, we're fairly unique. Let's just say some call us the right-headed stepchild. And iCatholic Mobile is on the team. We appreciate their support for what we do. We love them for it because they, like us, believe there's no salvation outside the church, and they want to do something special. Yes, of course, there's unlimited data plans, and yes, they're waiving the activation fee. When you mention A Catholic Take, my name, or the Station of the Cross, that's true. And yeah, they're giving steep discounts to Catholic religious, praise be to God. But it's more than that, too. Check them out, iCatholicMobile.com, iCatholicMobile.com. Matt Gaspers is here. He's the managing editor over at the Vatican, or Inside the Vatican, InsideTheVatican.com. We'll link to it in the show notes as well. But we're talking about the final document on the Synod on Synodality. And we're going to be linking to some of these other articles that I'm seeing as well. Matt, welcome back to the show. I want to talk about the Father James Martin crowd because they put a lot of effort into lobbying the cardinals during this latest round of the Synod, holding a special event, trying to get a word in with transgendered lobbyists, etc., with His Holiness, and even His Holiness making sort of off-the-cuff promises, maybe. I don't know, that's how we characterize it. I'm not sure that, of course I'll, promote bishops that are transgender friendly in the United States. Absolutely. You got my word on that. So, that's kind of scary. How satisfied was that crowd with the final document?
I'm still reading through all the reactions, and I know that he's written something, I think, for America Magazine, some of his initial reactions. I still need to really read that in more detail to see where he's coming from. I think essentially I think if I remember correctly, what I've seen on social media is that he's basically saying, well, we have to remember that the church kind of moves at a glacier's pace and a lot of progress has been made already. And, don't lose heart, essentially, was his message. Now, what the final document itself actually says, and just to remember what I explained in the last segment, is that a lot of these hot button issues have been given to special study groups. They were basically taken off the table for general discussion this year because they generated so much controversy last year, especially in light of the Fiducia Supplicans debacle last December. So this is all that the final document says. It doesn't use the infamous acronym LGBT. It simply says what emerged, this is paragraph 50, what emerged throughout the entire synodal journey and in every place and context was the call for a church with a greater capacity to nurture relationships with the Lord, between men and women, in the family, et cetera, et cetera. Unfortunately, so many participants were delighted and surprised to be asked to join this journey and to be given the opportunity to have their voice heard in the community. Unfortunately, others continued to experience the pain of feeling excluded or judged because of their marital status, identity, or sexuality. The desire for more real and meaningful relationships is not only an authentic longing to belong to a close-knit group, but may also reflect a deep sense of faith, so they say. But as far as like practical conclusions, I think Fiducia Supplicans was really the bomb that they were going to drop. Whether or not it was approved by the Synod, they might have seen the writing on the wall that it was not going to be approved last year, which is why they chose to drop it as they did and then just remove it from discussion so that it couldn't be maybe overturned or something like that. That's my speculation.
Interesting. I do find it fascinating that they put a clause in basically because of this issue, the Fiducia Supplicans wild card, that before publishing, says, quote, before publishing important normative documents, the dicasteries are exhorted to initiate a consultation with the Episcopal conferences and with the corresponding structures of the Eastern churches, sui iuris. Now, I find that interesting because the Eastern churches revolted against them, because the African bishops sent their cardinal to the Home Office to get them to rewrite it in their favor. And they had so much worldwide pushback on that they're trying to put this clause in that basically lets them, I guess, see it coming next time. But at the same time, even if all of the bishops said don't do it, I still feel like they're going to do whatever they want to do anyway. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, I've conducted an interview with Henry Sire, the author of The Dictator Pope, which came out several years ago.
I interviewed him,
and I asked him about some of these questions of synodality. Hopefully this will be published not in the next issue, but the following issue of Inside the Vatican. And he basically says, yeah, I mean, this is all kind of a farce because Pope Francis does whatever he wants anyway. So,
right. Which is, I think, part of the interesting aspect of this whole decentralization authority argument. I mean, I remember when Pope Francis first became Pope, I did interview Henry Sire. I interviewed others, and they all kind of said the same thing. He's a godfather. He lives at the Santa Marta not because he doesn't like the opulence of the papal apartments. I mean, they overhauled the Santa Marta to the tune of millions of euros just so that he could live there. So big, huge dollars were spent so he could live in opulence in the Santa Marta. No, he's there because he wants to know what people are saying and doing. He wants to have his thumb on the pulse of the people coming and going from around the world there. He's a godfather character. So why would he ever support decentralization? Is this just the Peronism in him?
I think that's exactly right. He's kind of saying what each side wants to hear on some of these issues, and I think that's one of them for sure.
Okay, so let's ask you about then, of course, the open-ended issue that never goes away of female deacons. Cardinal McElroy was just so giddy over this document, saying, hey, the issue is still on the table. We're still discussing it, despite the fact that His Holiness Pope Francis said in that now infamous 60 Minutes interview, no. I mean, it was very emphatic. No, he leaned into it, for crying out loud. It's not vague. It's not ambiguous. It was very clear. No. And still, it's an open-ended question. They still think they're going to get female deacons. Do you think the Pope is just waiting for the opportune moment, or will it just be no?
That's a difficult question to answer. Practically speaking, I think we have to be honest that most diocesan parishes, Novus Ordo settings, have de facto deaconesses at the parish. They have women lectors. I think, now that the quote unquote ministry of acolyte is open to women, that's been since early 2021. I'm sure there are also women even serving at the altar itself, probably wearing an alb, looking very similar to a deacon in that way. So even if there's not an even if they don't actually violate the faith and say that women can be sacramentally ordained, which is obviously impossible, they're not valid matter for the sacrament of holy orders. I think they will still have. The compromise will probably be they'll come up with some kind of a quasi ordination ceremony that looks like an ordination. They'll let the women wear quasi vestments and serve at mass as if they're a deacon. That's my prediction.
Well, you got that. Was it a cardinal down in Brazil? He's been laying hands on ladies and sending them specifically to baptize people. That's pretty scandalous stuff. So he's been doing this quasi sacramental ordination type of ish ceremony with ladies for a while now, and he's pretty proud of that. Why do you figure so many embrace these heterodox ideas instead of just embracing what the church has always taught and what the church is commanded to teach to the world? Why do they? You got seconds on the clock, Matt. Why do they embrace heterodoxy?
Because I don't think they've ever been properly formed in the faith. They think that the church started in 1965 as opposed to 33 AD. I think that's what it boils down to.
Yep, I think Herding Cats in our chat box on YouTube makes a good point. Jesus had Judas until the very end. Buckle up, everybody. We're going to have our Judases until the very end, the wheat and the chaff. Well said. Hey, Matt Gaspers from InsideTheVatican.com. Appreciate you being on the team today. If you want to hang out for the after show, you're more than welcome to do so. It's where we carry on the conversation for at least another half hour, and you can do that on the live video feed. Go to thestationofthecross.com/ACT to find the live feeds there and be a part of that conversation. We'll see you right back here tomorrow morning for another round. God love you.
Catholic radio has just been a lifesaver for me. I still listen to it every day. I start my day with it. I listen to it all day long as much as I can. I am very grateful for it.
It's just an amazing thing to have as I am new to Catholicism. Obviously, it's not only helping me, but it's helping so many other people on their walk.
Thank you. God bless you for iCatholic Radio. It has changed my life.
Donate today at thestationofthecross.com.
And we're back. Welcome to the Aftershow, everyone. And I think we are going to need the triple box again. I believe we've got both Matt Gaspers and Dr. Stine hanging out with us today.
Well, good morning, everybody. By the way, today is Eileen's birthday. Happy birthday, Eileen. I figure, I wish I had like the suave capability of knowing how to manipulate AI, because I would have gotten ready in advance. I would have had an AI animated version of Luce, our Jubilee mascot, singing happy birthday to you today. I think that would be appropriate to do. But unfortunately, I'm not that smart, so I don't know how to make that happen. But happy birthday, Eileen. Hopefully you're going to do something fun and inspiring today. Skydive, bungee jump. You know what would be cool? Would be to you see all those balloons, hot air balloons, and they have like trampolines hooked to them and the skydivers are bound. You should do something like that. That'd be a great way to spend a birthday, I would argue. Be fun to try. You should try it. But happy birthday to you, Eileen. Appreciate you being on the Insider team today. By the way, before we jump back in with our guests, I did get the Bibles in from Tan, glory be to God, and I sent the first one out to Liz Finch, our first winner for our Bible giveaway during the Bible study. So I'll have a couple of more to give out, thanks to Tan, our partner in that. And you need to be on the team to be able to get access to it by being on the email list and joining us in the live Bible study. thestationofthecross.com/ACT. Join that email list. I sent out an email yesterday, and we'll send out another one today, 30 minutes before the Zoom link information is on the email. So check that out. But appreciate you guys being on the team for that. James, 16897, good morning. Mike, good morning to you, my friend. Damon, Janice, good morning to you. Eileen, again, good morning and happy birthday to you. Jane Steves, good morning. Praise be to God. Glad you're on the team. Thanks for doing it. Mike K is here. Leah's mama is here. T Storm is here. Good morning to you. Praise be to Jesus. Thanks for commenting, hanging out in the Telegram group this morning. Mateus from sunny California is on the team early. Up early. Mateus, good morning to you. Thanks for being on. Appreciate you. Paul, our friend from Buffalo, is here. Jen Nugent is here. Trad Jack Burton, Tweet and Toe, is also on the team today. Good morning to you. Aftershow in 3, 2, 1. Yay and amen. Hey, Cup O Joe is on the X. If you're on X and you've never commented, I'm pretty sure that if you comment for the first time, God gives you 100 years off of purgatory. I can't, don't fact check that, but just go with it and hope for the best. Hey, Cup of Joe says, hi, this is Joel. I have an idea for a show is instructing internet-based AI to make AI art images piracy or derivative. How about ethical? Just ethical in general. Is using AI artwork good for the soul? Is it ethical? That's, I think, a good question to ask.
What about using AI voiceovers, Joe?
That means I don't have to get up early. We could just you could just make AI versions of me. I could train the demon. I mean the AI bot to use my voice, and then I could sleep in. It'd be great. Hey, iCatholic Mobile's commenting over on X as well. Good morning to my good friend David from iCatholicMobile.com. Appreciate having you on the team today. Miriam, Phoebe, Deborah, Patricia, good morning to you. Joe, hi. Evelyn, Silent Fire 88, good morning. Sarah BD, good morning, says Luce is
Tokidoki or something like that. That's the parent company.
Tokidoki?
Which, again, I think is more than just that artist. So I'm not sure how much of it is just that artist and how much of it is...
Emphasis on the toke? I'm just asking for a friend.
Yeah.
We covered
Japanese.
that, Sarah, that he, in fact, creates adult pornography artwork as well. We did discuss that as well on the radio side. It's scandalous. It's absolutely scandalous. And it's just shallow and silly. Deborah, good morning. Phoebe, good morning. Evelyn, Shaquille, good morning to you. Liz Finch is on the team. Praise be to God. I mailed it yesterday, Liz. You're going to get your Bible hopefully by Friday. Let me know if you don't get it. Frank Rangel, good morning to you. Going backwards here. Helen Grace, I see you there. Kilroy Jones, good morning. Bruiser, I think Bruiser, somebody got mad because I was critiquing adult males who play video games. We should put up a poll. Should adults play video games? I know the answer is going to say maybe, but I'm on team no. I don't think adults should be playing video games personally. Herding Cats, again, good morning. Thanks for hanging out. Lights is 10. VMD, good morning. Viva Cristo Rey. Len Pine, Nick the Mike, Robert DeBruce, good morning to you. Don Paddock is here. Mimi's here. Jane's here. Junior Barr, Patty, good morning. Patty says the C's discontinued association with the Girl Scouts a decade ago. Wow, that's awesome. Way ahead of the curve there. I mean, think about how many Girl Scout troops are still in operation in Catholic parishes all over this country right now, despite the fact that Catholic Girl Scouts have been manipulated by their home office for the abortion cause now for many years. We still haven't done anything about that. Boy Scouts, too, have lots of issues these days. Laura, good morning to you. Praise be to God. Little Daisy's back. Good morning, all. Prayers for my mom-in-law, please. 82 and not doing well. Praying for her, little Daisy. We appreciate you being on the team today. Praise be to God. Michael, good morning to you. Praise be to God. Angel Knight, good morning. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Let me know if you got questions for Matt or for Dr. Stine. Both are on today. So, Matt, let me get your opinion on Todoki's Luce anime Jubilee art mascot character. What were your thoughts?
Oh, my. Well, I've been so busy. I'm working on an article for the next issue of Inside the Vatican, covering all of the final document of for the Synod and all this stuff, explaining how it's really a continuation of Vatican II in many ways. So I saw mention of it online, and nothing really shocks me at this point because we've seen it just gets weirder. It just gets weirder and weirder. But I did look up the video footage for myself because I just wanted to see. I saw the pictures of the little statue thing on the desk during the press conference, and I couldn't tell if it was like photoshopped in or if it was real. So I saw the video footage, and it is, I saw him unveil it during the press conference. And like you and Anthony were saying in your segment, it's just, I kind of feel bad for the guy in a sense. Like, how did I wind up with this awful job of revealing this ridiculous thing?
How did I pull the short straw? This is terrible. Like, who at the Vatican thought this was a good idea? That's what I want to know. It's kind of like those.
Someone needs to be fired. That's for sure. I don't know which off. I mean, this, I guess, is the dicastery for evangelization. They're the ones in charge of this. As far as I can tell, that's who he works for, the office that he works for. So someone definitely needs to be fired.
The Biden administration has those PR, friends, influencer people that hang out at the White House sometimes that are really cringy LGBTQ types and
or the whole Ministry of Truth thing. You remember that?
Right.
What's her name?
Yes.
I can't remember her name, but she was made a Mary Poppins song about trying to thwart disinformation or something.
Hats off.
Does anyone remember?
Does anyone remember singing that?
Does anyone remember 2016 when Hillary famously said everyone should Pokemon Go to the polls? You remember that? It was so lame. Dr. Stine, sorry, I had your mic off.
I got overshadowed by her basket of deplorables.
Oh yeah.
By the way, can I officially claim victory on my theory that Joe Biden is actually undermining Kamala Harris on purpose as revenge, because he went on TV and called half the country garbage last night, and even CNN is like, we may have done some real damage to her campaign. I'm like, well, her campaign is on live support as it was. This might have been the old Yeller moment at this point.
Oh man, we live in such interesting times. It is not boring. Praise be to God. There's a lot of excitement. Who remembers what's her name? Pocahontas from Northeast with the pulling out the beer in her kitchen. Remember that? What was her name?
Elizabeth Warren.
Yes, Elizabeth Warren. Remember that video where she was like, I'm gonna go get a beer. Hold on. And she goes and finds a beer and she pops it open in the most awkward way possible, as if she's never touched a beer before ever. It was so cringy.
That was Kamala Harris on with Colbert.
Exactly.
Pandering to Wisconsin by drinking the local corporate brand of beer, which means she got terrible advice, because everybody knows at this point that if you want to make a good impression among younger people, is you go find the local brew for the place you're pandering to. There's some micro.
Yes, exactly.
There's some micro beer brew that is in every pub in Wisconsin that she could have, has somehow in New York gotten a bottle of and cracked it open and drank it. But her campaign is not run by the smartest people.
No,
partially because they don't have the smartest person at the top of their ticket.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a parallel here to what we're talking about with the Vatican too. They seem incredibly tone deaf. When Barack Obama chose Kamala Harris to be the next president of the United States. Wait, was that out loud? What I meant to say was when the American people voted for Kamala Harris to be the front runner of the Democrat ticket, she chose. Kamala Harris was the farther left than Bernie Sanders when she was in the Senate. Walz is also an incredible far lefty. These are radicals. These aren't middle of the ground type of people. They are radicals and tone deaf. And half of everything they tell us feels absolutely made up and fictitious, and just we're being manipulated hardcore. Now, you guys know I've been incredibly critical of Donald Trump and all of his warts and faults. So I'm not gushing over the guy. But at the same time, there's a clear difference between these two campaigns when it comes to sincerity and authenticity.
I expect
similarly at the Vatican, though, going back to this, Luciferian, or as some people are calling it, little mascot. I just think it's a shallow, silly little thing. But nonetheless, absolute tone deafness. Is that an indicator of the kind of people making the decisions at the Vatican? Clearly, like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, are just way out there that they can't understand what normal America is even like. Similar at the Vatican. Would Dr. Stine, we'll start with you. What do you think?
I think that's accurate. And I also, what I was going to say is I think that the more I really look at how much trouble Biden has had in, cognitively, I would not be shocked if, given her open hostility to Catholicism from before she was remember when Kavanaugh was getting grilled about being a Knights of Columbus? That was her grilling him. I would not be shocked if it was her idea to place spies in our parish pews.
Yeah. Wouldn't be surprised at all. Or in the confessional.
When people say there's no difference between Trump and Kamala Harris on the evil thing, I'm like, no, I'm sorry, there is. And he would not put spies in your parish unless he thought there was an actual terrorist in your parish that he needed to spy on. Otherwise, it would just be
We probably shouldn't be having these phones in our confessionals either. These are listening devices.
Well, my parish has outside the confessional in Latin a sign that says when you transliterate it from Latin to English, it says leave your speaking box machine in this basket outside the confessional or something like that. It's really funny when you actually transliterate it.
But it's supposed to be a Faraday cage there. It'd be great.
Yeah.
Matt, you want to weigh in on all that?
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly agree with Anthony that there is a difference, certainly obviously a substantial difference between the two different campaigns. I really appreciated Archbishop Vigano's letter that he released I guess last week or the week before, I forget which, about, I forget what he called it, his reflections on the upcoming election, something like that. And he put it in very blunt, stark terms, as he usually does, that this is not a race. I'm paraphrasing. It's not a race between, two people of goodwill who happen to disagree on, matters of prudential judgment or whatever. This is this is as clear as it gets, good versus evil. And he did make a point of saying that Trump is not fully on board with, the Catholic position on things, certainly concerning life. And it's very sad that he is so in favor of IVF. He even told Raymond Arroyo he thinks that many Catholics are in favor of it, which that could be the case, but it's irrelevant because the church teaches that it's evil.
Which Raymond obviously pushed back on, right?
I don't. Yeah.
Raymond Arroyo pushed back with Trump by asking him to give a religious exemption for any IVF laws that might affect Catholic hospitals. And Trump thought that was a good idea. And that's probably about the most you're going to get out of the guy, honestly. Because I saw this when Trump's IVF statements came out online. I saw Catholics on Twitter saying, I'm a Latin Mass Catholic, and I didn't know IVF. What's wrong with IVF? I was like, oh, boy.
Right.
We have failed spectacularly. I have people who legitimately think that his campaign advisors are telling him the Catholic law stuff about IVF and stuff. No, they're not. They're telling him how to win Michigan. That's what they're telling him.
That's exactly right. Yeah, 100%.
Right. That's what they're telling him. But
I often feel like Trump is trolling Catholics just to get the vote, like the whole St. Michael thing. Like, I want to believe him sincerely that maybe the near-death experience, getting shot through the air, that's a pretty significant event in one's life. And I want to believe that. Behavior, but at the same time,
behavior as someone who's on the road to conversion, it's incoherent because he's on the road. A lot of people point out it looks like at some point he might convert.
Maybe, I don't know. But if you watch there's a video out. There's a video out. There's a documentary film. It's a short film. I watched it this morning. It's on X. It's called The Art of the Surge is what it's called. The Art of the Surge. Maybe we can put a link to it, Jake, if we can find it. The Art of the Surge. It's a short video, maybe 30 minutes or something. I watched it this morning, and it's behind the scenes, watching Donald Trump interact with his team, watching Kamala Harris and responding to her and doing interviews. Listen, they're all back there strategizing, talking about the talking points. I mean, listen, there's a lot of, hey, you should put something out for, St. Michael the Archangel. That would play well. I could just.
Sure. Yeah. I don't think he knows that much about St. Michael the Archangel.
And neither do I.
Now, I don't know if you saw this, but last night, whoever runs the live Chiron at Fox News was having a good time with their reporting on Kamala Harris. I don't know if you can read this on here, but no, I don't think you can. What it says is the Chiron says, Kamala, elect me to fix my mistakes. That's Fox News. They don't usually do that stuff. Another one, desperate Kamala, closing message all about Trump. I think they're getting the message that this isn't going to go well for the establishment because the people who have access to the most data in the country all called the Trump campaign late last week to make peace with him. And that would be the guys who run Amazon, the guys who run Google, the guys who run Facebook have all called him to make peace with him.
Yep. Jeff Bezos took a huge hit when he didn't endorse Kamala Harris.
Yep.
Kamala Harris said she knows she's not going to win the Electoral College. She didn't say it that way, but she said it by saying when someone at a rally of hers challenged her, she said, don't worry, we're going to have the courts take care of it. And then it came out the next day that they brought Mark Elias on, who is the guy who goes to places to basically disenfranchise lawful voters. Mm-hmm. That is the final desperate step.
Do you know what they're going to do to the Electoral College if she wins?
Well,
but why haven't they done that with
don't have
Biden,
to,
though? Why haven't they done that under Biden?
They won't be. Right. So
Biden is not nearly as radical as she is.
But is he even capable of controlling anything?
Go ahead, Doc.
I don't know. Biden set up what they need to do, what they want to do, which is he allowed all the migrants in, and they've been openly talking about giving them amnesty. She has said she wants to give them amnesty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you do that, you create 20 million new voters, and it's game over.
Yeah.
I've seen like the projection for electoral college maps. Like my state would be a blue state, and my state's going to go 30 points Trump. Okay, to give you an idea.
Yeah.
Texas, yeah. I mean, Texas could flip just because of the natural ebbs and flows of the electoral college. Because remember, California was a red state at one point. New York
Texas
is moving towards
state. Texas was Democrat for a long time.
My state used to be red. Yeah. Colorado used to be red.
Oh, you're in Colorado, Matt? I didn't realize you were in
Colorado. The last 20 years has been a major change in Colorado.
Where about in Colorado are you?
I'm about an hour northeast of Denver in a city called Greeley.
I think I may have driven through that area on my road trip during the summer, actually.
Oh, okay.
We drove through northern Colorado. We stopped by the Buc-ee's up there because why not? You
have a moral obligation to stop at Buc-ee's. Praise be to God. Hey, Improxima says, can we apparently... Improxima says, can we say a quote, apparently ill-willed instead of tone deaf? It avoids full certitude, but also calls it more what it looks like, that these people aren't that stupid. They're being intentional. I think it's a good point. He also said something about just because you're TLMer doesn't mean TLM doesn't mean traditional philosophy theology. We need to work on that. I would agree. Just because one goes to a TLM community is not a guarantee of things. I've seen lots of issues in various times and places. When I've experienced TLM communities, whether it's dress code or behaviors or what have you. Speaking of behaviors, there is. Let me just give the results of this poll here. Is it okay for adults to play video games? 23% say yes, 50% say never, and 28% say I guess. So there's at least some hope for the.
I'm in I guess in that if that's how you unwind on a weekend, is a couple hours or something. Okay, whatever. I'm more worried about the person who that's their personality is video games. They go to work and then they play video games, or they find a way to make money playing video games because you can't. Well, there are video games.
Yeah.
Now, granted, also give the exception. If you were a computer programmer and then you got a job working for a video game company and now you have to play test a video game you make in the office, that's a really lame job. But but it could be worse.
Poor video game programmer guy. That's rough. Matt, what do you say? How do you feel about adults who play video games?
I suppose I'd agree with Anthony for the most part. I mean, I enjoy playing like Madden football with my 8-year-old son, but I don't spend hours and hours playing it on my own. So
Matt, do you live in your mother's basement? Tell the truth.
I'm in my own basement right now, not in my mother's.
Close enough. Close enough. We're all basement dwellers. We're the most oppressed class. Us gamers.
On the insiders group on the Telegram, Damon posted it here. Thank you again, Damon. The same question should men versus Jake put, is it okay for adults? Damon specified men, and right now, should men play video games? 0% said yes, 57% said no, 43% said depends on the game. I'm still on. I don't think adults should play video games. That's still my position, but I get that there's some leeway on that for sure. Let's see here. Sci-Fi says, "Good morning. Good morning. What is the difference between board games and video games? I'm a developer, but I work in meteorology. Board games. I'm not a big board game fan at all. My wife and kids love board games. In fact, my wife hosts Board Game Sunday after Mass at our trad parish once a month, and people come and gather and they just play board games. Drives me up.
Board games, in my opinion, board games are all about relationship building. I mean, that's kind of how I see them. Video games, I suppose, are more about like strategy, and I don't know what kind of games people like to play, but I'm guessing. Go ahead.
Online video games can be relationship building. I've known people who were friends with the people who regularly played in the World of Warcraft servers. To date myself on this, I didn't play the game, but I 20 years ago had roommates who did, and I remember distinctly one of the guys who was in their server died, and they held a funeral for his character and completed a moment of silence. It was the weirdest thing.
Really?
They were taking it very seriously.
I'm going to be honest with you.
It's weird, but it's the weirdest thing to walk in on.
Wow.
But
I don't know about that, guys.
So
I'm saying Dig Dug. Okay, sure, whatever. Pac-Man, Donkey Kong. Okay, Mario Kart. Yeah. Some of these games, they're pretty intense. They're pretty graphic. They're pretty.
When you're trying to live vicariously through a video game, that's the problem right there.
Exactly.
I think.
Just like with anything else.
Right. I think there's a difference between plugging in your emulator or your old video game platform to go play some Castlevania or Super Mario 3 or whatever, right? A game that you can just put down and walk away, and if you lose your progress in the game, you're not going to be too mad about it.
Just like with pretty much any other leisure activity, if it's dominating your time and dominating your attention, then it's bad. But if it's legitimately not having a negative effect, then it's like any other leisure activity, right? Like, how is it different from watching a movie that has nothing to do with the faith, or reading a book that has nothing to do with the faith, or playing board games that have nothing to do with the faith? There are quite a few leisure activities that are not explicitly like teaching you about XYZ whatever, and it's there are things you are allowed to do for leisure. What's the wasn't I think it was St. John Birchman's who was who loved to play billiards, and he was doing that in his leisure time, and one of his compatriots came up to him and said, John, if the world was going to end, if you knew the world was going to end in 2 hours from now, what would you do? And he said, I'd go on playing billiards. We're ordered to take our leisure time, and that's what I'm doing. So, especially considering, Matt, you're talking about, you're bonding with your son by playing a game together. Is it any different that it's Madden football versus, I don't know, Go Fish or something like that? Is it really any different in that way? Versus, if you were playing a game where there was like inappropriate content or something like that, well, then that'd be a problem, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But I struggle to see, except for, some generational snobbery, maybe, what the difference is between some, harmless content.
He just called you a snob,
games.
Joe. You're going to take
No,
that?
I'm not calling Joe that. I'm not calling Joe
that. Trust
but
me.
I
have to live with this all the time.
I know some people.
I know
some people who act very snobbish about video games compared to other leisure activities. Not you in particular, Joe. I'm just calling.
I'm not mentioning any names or anything.
No, I'm not mentioning any names. But
Ixnay on the OJ references. By the way, Jay says the only board game that men should play is chess. I think part of my issue is I was as a kid I was forced to play games all the time. So like Uno, oh my heavens, if I had to play another game of Uno, that's like purgatory. And like chess, my dad and uncle were huge in chess. I was never great at chess. My other problem is it's a struggle for me because of competition. Like, you play to win. You play to decimate your opponent. So like like playing for a just relaxing fun time is emotionally and psychologically not a thing for me. So I just don't like games in general. I can't stand them personally. So I try to avoid them at all costs. Because I'm not building relationships, I'm building bad behaviors. And I want to avoid them.
Does it bother you that Uno's become kind of a meme now?
The Uno reverse card and all that?
No, you haven't. Oh, no, people play Uno reverse cards on each other as a joke.
Yes.
In real life now. That's weird.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
And I actually think, so just to sort of counteract what I was saying, is that I think it's good to make a conscious effort. If it's part of a conscious effort to just remove screens and modern tech in general. Like, if you're going full neo-Luddite and you're saying no movies, no video games, no nothing like that, I'm more inclined to support that versus being a snob about what media is okay and what media is not okay in that way. Where you're like, watching movies is fine, even if they don't happen to be Catholic movies, but playing video games is not fine. to me, those seem like equal wastes of time in that way. And at least, and even playing a video game, there's a certain amount of potential, bonding and group.
Sure. I would put one note of caution, though, as far as video games go, is video games are intentionally designed to be addictive.
Yes.
Movies, I don't think have that same quality. They can be, of course, but I don't think the intention is the same.
TV shows for sure. Got to keep you watching.
That's true. But video games are built to addict you, to keep you on the hook, to keep you coming back for more and more and more. It's an intentional.
I would argue that any media
design,
any media like that is.
Yeah, maybe there's an argument there.
People get about franchises. You see how people get about franchises.
Yeah,
it gets weird. Like I say that as a former super Star Wars fan, who I realized at one point that I had a disordered attachment to it, and I asked God to help me out with it. And then, like a month later, the The Force Awakens came out, and boy, did that take care of that problem. Because I remember walking to that movie going, they just remade the original movie shot for shot with a bigger budget, and to show they can make a competent Star Wars movie, and it was all downhill from there. So franchises can be extremely addicting. People can agree. Have you seen how people get about Harry Potter or even Lord of the Rings?
My heavens! I used to get in so much trouble every time I criticized Harry Potter. Like, how dare you? Harry Potter's just fine. It's not of the devil. Stop it! I'm like, oh my heavens! Good
All
grief.
I need to hear is what Father Ripperger has to say about Harry Potter, and that's the end of it for me.
Yeah, right. Oh my heavens! Jay said this is hilarious.
Is he the one who said that? Is he the one who said that Harry Potter actually uses things that some occultists claim are actual spells and stuff?
Well, that probably is the case, but what I specifically remember is that he talks about how the author has been pretty open about the fact that she essentially channeled the book.
Right.
Like the story.
Yeah. Well, and they actually do use spells and charms in there. I remember years ago, I almost bought a book. I was at a bookstore and I saw this book on druids or something, and I almost bought this book until I looked through it, and it actually had actual chants and incantations and charms and spells.
Yep.
The actual the liturgical rubrics. And I'm like, I don't think I want this one. So I put it back. And in fact, when I interviewed Ira Wolfnuthsen on Friday about her own conversion from occultism, in her book, she says, listen, I'm going to tell you stories because that's what you want to hear, but I will not tell you details. I will not give you the words. I will not tell you a lot of the details because you don't need that crap in your life. And I think it's a very valid point. If they're using the actual words from this stuff, that's dangerous, period. That's irresponsible and dangerous. And we shouldn't be playing with fire because we're going to get burned. Jay said his wife and I were playing chess while she was pregnant and going into labor. After her water broke, she refused to go to the hospital until she beat me at chess. That does not surprise me, Jay. That does not surprise me at all. Knowing you the way we do here at the ACT and love having you on the team, I'm not at all surprised your wife was like, nope, not going anywhere till you are beaten, sir. My mother refused to go to the hospital to have me until she had watermelon. Almost the same thing, I would argue. Almost the same thing. Somebody was Adelaide. Adelaide said the last video game she played was Pong. I used to have Pong as a kid. Man, we couldn't afford the Atari 6400 or Atari 24,000. I don't remember what that model was called. Like 1984, we're talking. Only the rich kids could afford that thing, so we had to go to the friend's house to play. But we had Pong. That was so cool, Pong, back in the day. We had a little boob tube we had to hook it to. They had the UHS, clicker. So we got to play Pong on that. That was a good time. Studebaker, good morning to you. Studebaker says
game I played was before I was a Catholic.
It was what? What was the last game?
It was before I was a Catholic. It was before I was a Catholic. Was the last one I played. It was some ripoff of Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, really? Yeah.
which I would not play to play now. Man. I was never a big video game guy, but my roommate at the time was playing it. I was like, oh yeah, I'll try this, and it was fun. But I mean, you're blowing cops away in the game, so I don't know. I can't exactly tell you that's a good idea to be playing a game like that.
That's not a good deal. Studebaker Hauk said he spent the night playing Flight Simulator and walked away with motion sickness. I got motion sickness once playing a video game at an arcade. It was the Star Wars TIE Fighter game. I definitely got sick playing that game.
One where was it like you sit in the cockpit Star Wars game? Yeah,
yes.
Okay, I've seen that one before. And that there were a whole lot of games from the 90s that were like F-14 simulator, which had a cockpit like that. I could see getting
I loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tradish Mom says Dig Dug was my game. That was your jam. Dig Dug. My dad loved Dig Dug. Man, I remember as a kid back in the 80s, him taking us to the local arcade to play video games, and he loved Dig Dug. That was his thing. Hey, Nick the Mike, good morning to you. Lynn Pine, good morning. Go ahead.
Oh, I remember a Legend of Zelda game on like the first generation Game Boy that I got so good at beating that I started doing the game backwards, going to like figuring out where the hardest cast to go to was, and starting there and going backwards. Because I was like 10 or something.
Oh man,
there's a difference between those kind of games though. The games from that era and like 60-hour video games that have in-game purchases and things. I mean, there's just significant difference.
Well, if I want to build relationships with my family, I like to do outdoor activities. That's my thing. So hunting, hiking, camping. I take them on road trips or adventures. I like to give them experiences. I don't think
anyone can argue that that's not superior to any kind of media based leisure activity.
Yeah.
Being active in that way is good. But again, if you can't go out anywhere and you're just like, oh, we have an hour to hang out, let's play a game. And then maybe it's a video game, maybe it's a card game, a board game. Like, to me, making that into too much of a distinction is not good, and especially it tends to come with a certain judgmentalism about how, anyone who plays any video game is a loser. But that same judgment doesn't get placed on anyone who plays board games or card games or things like that. To me, that's where the inconsistency becomes. It's more about an opportunity to act holier than thou and superior than an actual legitimate point being made.
Let me give you an example of this. Let me give you an example of that using something that's much more controversial in Christian circles in general. That's Dungeons and Dragons, where people think that the players are actually acting out incantations, which they're not doing.
Yep.
They're cleric of a made up deity.
Yeah.
If he goes, I go do my church stuff in game, they don't then say you sit there and speak out prayers and other stuff, right? The biggest sin involved in Dungeons and Dragons typically is the profound waste of time involved. Incredible waste of time. And the attachment that you build to that stuff.
Yes.
Even though it is a social thing.
Yes.
You've got your 4, 5, 6 friends that you're playing this stuff with. It has the benefit of the social stuff for a group of people who typically drawn to that, who have no social skills oftenly. I know this from experience.
I know a lot of
your sorcerer goes, I fling magic missile, and then he's not, unscrolling some.
Yeah, there's nothing. Oh, we just lost Dr. Stine. Oh, because he was. Yeah, see the anti Dungeons Dragons crowd is trying to shut down Dr. Stine.
They're saying hexes right now.
But no, I know, like I know a lot of guys online who are like good Catholic guys, like dads and stuff, who play it's not Dungeons and Dragons, but they play that sort of style. I think maybe it is D&D. I can't remember. I don't follow it that much, but I know them. D&D. Yeah, what's that? It's probably D&D. It's so broad. It's such a broad category. Like people act as if it's more along the lines of a Harry Potter thing, and it's such a broad category of style of game. But I know these guys, and they're pretty clearly like good solid Catholic guys who are who are taking serious who are taking serious things seriously, and then for leisure they play, and their system seems to help support that fact that you don't have to suck tons of time into it every time. It plays more like as if you were sitting down and playing poker instead, type of thing for a few hours on a weekend.
There is another reason not to play D&D though, and that's that the company went woke.
Yes.
Like, seriously.
Yes, which is something very.
In their games now, they redesigned orcs because they look like a racial stereotype according to them. I'm like, as a guy who spent a lot of time in my youth playing D&D, I never one time thought, hey, this looks like the group they're saying it looks like.
Yeah.
If you thought that might be some required introspection on your part, because trust me on this one. A bunch of, mostly white nerds that I knew in my youth never once thought that.
Yes.
They never went, with the white hoods, we'll say.
Yes,
they never went there.
The white hoods. Hey, Lost Creole says we need to read more books. Yay and amen. He says we also need a list of forbidden books from the Vatican. Bring back the Inquisition. Yay and amen, Lost Creole. I agree.
Yeah,
the current Vatican would forbid books that we should be reading.
Right.
I knew that would get some attention from Matt right there. That's hilarious.
Okay. Pope Francis convenes a new Inquisition under Fernandez, because that's the same pastor. And says, hey, by the way, here's this book. This one guy on YouTube gave it to me 5 years ago. Put that at the top of the list, and there's infiltration, because we all remember that picture. Okay, Come on. This Vatican, no, not this Vatican.
But in general, you would agree, though, that the principle of having the Vatican help the lay faithful steer clear of pitfalls and errors is a good idea. Like, for instance, back when we used to get guidance about movies from the bishops, we don't get that anymore.
I would much rather have the syllabus of errors brought back first. I'd rather have the syllabus of errors re-implemented. But the problem is you can't have that in the post-conciliar era, because Joseph Ratzinger, when he was a priest, said the Vatican II was a counter syllabus. There are obvious conflicts there that he recognized. But I'd rather have the syllabus brought back, because the syllabus undercuts a lot of the same errors that the Index of Forbidden Books had. The Index was like the companion piece, really, to the syllabus. I mean, there was the Index the Index of Forbidden Books predates the Syllabus of Errors, but you would find political treatises on this on the Index because of the Syllabus of Errors, because it was, look, here's a Catholic argument for why neoconservatism is a wonderful thing or something, and you would find that book on the Index, whereas the Syllabus of Errors condemns the underlying errors. That's why I'd have the syllabus first, honestly. Now, that having been said, of course, a Catholic priest writing, I don't know, Chardin's books, I'm pretty sure were on the Index, right? But his are theological.
Hey, Eileen said, thanks so much for the birthday shout out and for all the birthday wishes. Nothing as exciting planned as skydiving, but her daughter did set up a scavenger hunt. So that's cool. That's cool too. Skydiving, chasing and wrestling alligators. Those are great activities, but scavenger hunt with your daughter, probably better. Arguably better. Praise be to God. So happy birthday to you, Eileen. Cupo Joe says a single player game with a good story isn't always addictive. But it's the whole pushing you more to the virtual reality versus actual reality, I think, is my issue. Obviously, playing board games is more in the moment and in reality with your family than virtual reality is. And go ahead.
Here's my thing with other realities is, I mean, people have argued. I know a very, I'll say otherwise, an otherwise very good priest who hates Tolkien, hates Lord of the Rings because
I know a lot of people who hate
he was
Tolkien.
Once led astray into fantasy when he was a kid, and he blames Tolkien for this, even though Tolkien is fantastic. He is like Tolkien is great literature, but people have got, especially people who don't have a solid grasp of reality, get sucked into fantasy fiction and fantasy worlds and stuff. And you can do that without ever playing a video game. You can just get sucked into that by fiction.
Yeah.
And so there is always a danger with anything that's not, explicitly of God, and even with something that is implicitly Catholic, like Lord of the Rings. There's a danger there. Now, I disagree with this priest about condemning ever reading Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. I think that's a very silly thing to do, and that's kind of like priests who struggled with alcohol and then say no one should ever drink alcohol ever. And it's like, that's not how that works. But it's understandable, at least, to be very wary and promote wariness of that. So that's it's good to be wary and on your guard when you're dealing with any media. And I think, to your point, video games, because they combine certain sensations, because you're getting the dopamine hit from clicking the thing and doing the other, it's the same problem with social media. You get dopamine from clicking the favorite button and seeing the little number go up on the likes on the tweet that you agree with. You get like that's how all of that. That's how anything digital
Kamala
works.
Harris? I feel so manipulated now. Good grief.
That's how anything digital works. So I do agree with that. But again, there's there's a lot of context and content specificity to take into account here.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Hey, Diane, good morning. Thanks for hanging out. Jake is down to earth. Voice of reason.
You might be the first person to ever call me down to earth.
Diane, I'm afraid for you. If you are so easily manipulated.
Seriously.
Wow. I mean, friends don't let friends believe Jake is the voice of reason. Just saying. I'm teasing. Of course, Jake is the voice of reason. Praise be to God.
I'm the voice
Mom
of
says,
contrarianism.
Tradish Mom says, I came in late, but you mentioned Harry Potter. Did you see Sean Ryan's podcast with Father Rehill? Said that there was a class on Harry Potter when he went to train as an exorcist. Yeah, let that sink in. I mean, that's what we're dealing with here, people.
Yeah, I think
that's a great conversation about movies.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, I think what Father Ripperger likes to remind people of is, the reason why we're seeing such a rise in demonic oppression, obsession, and even possession these days is precisely because of things like Harry Potter, that it's indoctrinating or inducting young people in particular into the occult, and they're opening the doorways to the demons through those means.
There you go. Well said. Hey, Michael Oakland asked a great question. Video game shaming? Really? I don't understand why people love watching sports or watching cars. To each his own. Well, I don't believe in the to each his own philosophy. I think that's dangerous for starters. But second of all, I think you might have maybe missed a lot of the conversation about video games in general. There's been a lot of different varying opinions on video games so far just in the chat box. You might want to scroll backwards or go back and rewatch some of the conversation for a fuller context and all of that. But I don't think we're video game shaming.
And I will say,
tinge, but the voice of reason has balanced us off.
And I will say that working on cars definitely is superior to both watching sports and playing video games, even though those
now,
are
what about watching NASCAR?
Yeah.
I've never understood the appeal of NASCAR. Like, that's got to be the most boring spectator.
Yeah, yeah.
No way.
I mean, like, that's the thing. Watching sports is just as watching sports is vicarious living, just like video games are. If only
listen, it's NASCAR is great. You get the mullet right, and you get the helmet with the two cup holder thing. And you can just sit there and this is the only motion you need.
Yeah.
Right?
Great.
Like, you don't have to turn your neck all that much. Like, it's fantastic. Listen, I tell you what, I don't watch sports. I don't watch football anymore. I used to watch college football a lot. I used to watch golf actually a lot, but I tell you, I don't watch any sports now. But when you go to a sports game, doesn't matter what it is, you get into it. And when you're at a NASCAR race, the roar and the energy of those cars is really, really amazing to
maybe that's what the appeal is. I've never been to one.
Yeah.
But I think
I would say go to one and it's a good time.
Yeah. Sit in the pit right in the middle of the grass area, right?
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Instead of it being in the stands.
Yeah,
I've been to rallies before and F1 car races. Those are great races. Those are fun to watch. The energy, the excitement, the cars, the sounds, the smells. It's a visceral experience. So I do like them. Even golf, I mean, who doesn't like a playoff? I could watch soccer at a playoff. It's great. It's great energy. It's a lot of fun. But watching it on TV game. Sometimes it's hard.
Yes,
yeah, it's hard.
But this thing is, I love going to a baseball game. We have a minor league baseball team here in Buffalo. I don't particularly like watching baseball on TV. Maybe the World Series. And even that I tend not to unless it's a team I kind of like and I check in. Oh, like, how's the final game going? Oh, cool. But even that, like, whereas going to a game is very fun. A day out at a minor league baseball game where you're not caring too much about the result and just having fun in the sun and relaxing, especially with a good crowd of people to just hang out with. It's a good time. There's, again, moderation to be taken in. There are people who really just live vicariously through sports. Like here in Buffalo, the Buffalo Bills are practically a religion, and it's sad.
Buffalo Bills, they play, what's that? Was it bowling?
It's Division III college team. You wouldn't have heard of it, no.
Yeah, that's the best. Buffalo Bills, the best JUCO team in the state of New York, at least, hands down.
Yes. We were 4-time losers in the 90s.
If you've been beaten by the Houston Texans, you should never be proud of yourself. That's my rule.
Now the Houston Oilers on the other hand.
That's right. They used to know it. Good old days. Hey, all right, can we bring this back to full circle before we run out of time today? Let's talk about so we've been talking about video games and various things. Can we talk about anime? Like going back to Luce, the mascot here for the Vatican. Should adults watch anime? The fact that young adults are into anime and there's a whole anime scene in the world, like that's, I don't know, I find that troubling. Should we, Matt, what do you think? You think adults should be watching anime?
I honestly don't really know what anime is. I mean, I know what it is generally speaking. I've never watched it, so I don't know. I mean, it seems like they tend to have a lot of scantily clad females as part of the anime experience, so that's certainly not a good thing. But it's basically like a cartoon series. Is that what it is? I really don't know.
Anime just means Japanese, Eastern and specifically Japanese style animation. So it's really anime is just a style of animation. That's all it is as a term, generically. Okay. There is a lot of terrible, scandalous, bad, awful anime out there. Just like there's a lot of terrible Western animation, like any Disney show where they're promoting LGBT stuff. You know, like there's a lot of terrible Western cartoons. Anime there's also
highbrow anime out there where you're not going to see that stuff.
Yes, correct.
And the Japanese don't tend to use a lot of strong language in their media.
Little Women. They did a Little Women in anime.
Yeah, and there's
so like it's like anything else. If it's if you're watching some anime that doesn't have any, that isn't a near occasion of sin, then I don't care.
Yeah, I've seen some very very entertainingly respectful portrayals of Catholicism in anime series or comics or whatever like that, where they're actually it's quite funny, and there are some very very highbrow animated films that are done in that style, in Japanese animation style, which is that anime. So when you hear the term anime, all that really means by definition is Japanese animation. A lot of what it covers are very bad series or movies or cartoons, and there is a lot of bad stuff out there. But again, it's just like talking about movies or animation here in the West. So there are definitely.
I don't think the art form is.
The art form is not the issue, really. In that sense.
Yeah, and that's the truth about any genre of music you can name, any other medium of media. There's good and bad, and you got to be careful and discerning with anything you consume.
Yes.
It's just at the end of the day.
Yes.
Tradish Mom says she's dressing up as Luce for Halloween now. See what we've done? You see what we've done? Good grief.
No, I've already seen spicy memes about that thing online. I posted one on my Facebook. Someone took a member of the James Martin group and had it on a spit on a fire, like they were going to do the Middle Ages witch thing, and had Luce with Luce, I think how you pronounce it, with the torch. I saw that one yesterday. I was like, that's not. See, the Vatican was like, that's not synodal. You shouldn't do that.
Which is why I think that's way funnier than just outright saying this is evil, satanic, demonic, and we should condemn it. And I think it's way funnier that there are rad kids on Twitter taking it and turning it into like a pro Inquisition, pro extreme trad Catholicism thing. That's way funnier because that's gonna make the Vatican way angrier than grouchy people not liking it. That's way funnier.
How long until we get to the ultimate edgy end, though, where that character is depicted standing next to a certain Austrian painter?
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
That's coming. That's coming.
I know.
It's not if, it's how long.
When people who are out of touch try and do cool things for the kids, like people, the internet takes it and runs with it, and they are gonna. This happens every time. This happens to every corporation. This happens to every. It is when you're saying, Joe, like the main issue is that it's out of touch. That's exactly it, because people are going to take it and run with it, and the Vatican's going to end up like not using it at all because they're embarrassed of what the actual kids online have taken and run with.
How long?
That's way funnier.
Matt, you're watching the Vatican. How long until the Vatican uses influencers to help promote their synodality causes? When are we going to get like the Bud Light guy, or is it a gal? I don't know what he is. But when the Bud Light guy shows up at the Vatican to promote, the synodality, like how long till that day?
I seem to recall that they did something like that as part of this synodal process. I mean, it's been 3 years, so I can't remember everything they've done, but I know they did. I think even I seem to remember somehow, like, if I'm remembering this right, but Jimmy Aiken or someone from Catholic Answers was involved in doing the online survey at some point. I don't know. So they are getting to that point. But this is my favorite. I don't know if you guys can see that. Archbishop Vigano is trolling right now. He has a meme up with Greta Thunberg.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm waiting for Father Casey OFM to get invited to the Vatican to discuss synodality. Because it'll be something. It'll be like that's how it will go.
Yes.
It won't be whoever that traditional guy in Brazil who's like the biggest Catholic YouTuber of everybody. Taylor Marshall had him on his show once. It won't be him, despite the fact that he's got like 5 million people watching him in South. No, it'll be Father Casey or somebody like that.
You know, and Father Casey's buddy just asked to be laicized. You know,
I saw that.
Let that sink in for a little bit. Man, we live in very interesting times to be sure, but the level of numbness when it comes to what's important in the world versus what we're talking about, it's mind-boggling. There's so many big things happening in the world, so many important things happening in the world, and the Vatican is putting out anime mascots. Like, that's the priority. Like, it just... Come on, you're not serious. You're just not serious about it.
It's like the famous meme where the guy is all got a big smile holding a cup of coffee or something, and in the background things are on fire, buildings are exploding.
Exactly.
This is fine.
Yeah, mostly peaceful protests out here. I don't know what anybody's complaining about. Forget the building burning
Everything
behind me.
is fine.
Everything is totally okay.
Or I also think of I don't know if you guys I have young kids, so we've seen that Lego movie where the main character is like, everything is awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything is cool when you're part of a team.
Yeah, exactly. Again, where the church acts like a corporation. That's where we're at. The church is acting like it's just another global corporation. It's putting out an outdated, like a 10-year-old basically anime mascot. You know, it's just like when a fast food place does a commercial and it's all memes that are 10 years old. So people who are actually in tune with internet culture just mock it endlessly. It doesn't actually do anything.
Do you notice the only people who get away with that are the fast food companies who clearly hire a young person to run their social media accounts?
Yeah.
So they engage in internet trolling. They're the only ones who get away with it.
Yeah.
Because
and even they tend to get mocked as posers by people who take internet culture way too seriously. So it's like you're not going to win. So there
is one person who thinks that Luce is the best thing ever. Not surprising who it is. Mike Lewis from Where
Mike
Peter
Lewis.
Is.
Yeah.
He's never met anything out of the Vatican that he didn't love.
I'm fully
bold
anti-Luce
prediction.
now.
He says Luce will not only be the symbol of a tremendously successful Jubilee year, but she will become the greatest symbol of missionary discipleship the church has seen in centuries.
He's just fishing for engagement. I don't think he even believes what he's saying.
He's trolling us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I think yeah.
Trolling us.
I think he is.
So
I think he knows exactly what he's doing.
There's the reason why
he's triggering all trash.
Yeah, exactly. That's all this is. That's all this is doing is it's just another war, another internet war between.
You know, he did say. By the way, he did. Well, Cardinal Burke is not my first choice to be the next pope. Mike Lewis did say that if Cardinal Burke became pope, he would have to sell Where Peter Is to someone who would continue the mission of defending the sitting pope.
See, there you go.
Online. And now I'm like, wait a minute.
Hold on. Yeah, like, what are we talking about now? Good grief. It only works if I get the right pope, okay? It's got to be the right pope, okay? This can't be any pope.
It should be called Where Francis Is, not Where Peter is.
That's basically what it is.
I sometimes call Where Did I Leave Pedro because it's not a defense of the papacy, because if it was a defense of the papacy, it would be a little more hermeneutic of continuity, honestly, even though I'm not a fan of that.
At least Mike knows where our button is and is willing to stomp on it when the opportunity arises. So thank you, Mike Lewis, for trolling us today. We do appreciate that. I mean, like, it's like no one takes this seriously. It's the most ridiculous, silly thing ever. Good grief.
That's the thing is, I think most of the people, including kids online, Catholic kids online are really just, they're playing things up for a laugh or to get a rise out of people. Like they're taking an extreme position on it to basically get reactions, And to me, that the funnier part of that is is to do that in a way that irritates the corporate types at the Vatican. That I think that's going to be the funniest thing, as opposed to just outright, saying this is evil, so something like that, overreacting in that way.
Oh yeah, you got to mock it. It's
yes, and the funniest way to do that is to kind of just amplify it. Like, okay, Luce is going to join the crew to burn the heretics. This is great, like that sort of thing.
Can Joe ask? Can one buy a Luce doll? I hope not. I hope their dolls aren't available.
Someone brought up luchador.
I'll look into that. I'll send a press inquiry.
Yeah, does the Vatican have a swag shop? Get your Vatican endorsed lucha. Don't get the knockoffs. Like you can't go to Rome and buy the lucha doll on the street from the African fella, because that's a knockoff made in China. No, you need the actual certified lucha doll from the Vatican store.
Yes. Probably still made in China.
Also made in China.
Yes. We need the official Luce Funko Pop to go with the Pope Francis Funko Pop. And
yeah, buddy.
Don't give them ideas. The Vatican is broke. Don't give them ideas.
Yes, exactly. You getting it? Does it come with they can do a promo where it comes with a free indulgence, the Funko Pop.
That worked out splendidly before last time we tried that. So why not make that retro again? That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Praise be to God.
Make indulgence is great again.
We're running out of time today. Visit the gift shop at the Vatican, says iCatholic Mobile. Yeah, I have visited the gift shop at the Vatican, and I got to say I didn't buy anything. Yeah, kind of sad. The one thing I regret was not buying Our Lady of Tre Fontane at the gift shop at St. John Lateran. They had a beautiful, fairly large, and was like full resin, so it was heavy, statue of Our Lady Tre Fontane. And I think it was like €50. I don't know what I was thinking about buying it. I mean, my bag was already overweight, and I had to pay €100 just to get it home. But what's another €50? Like, I should have bought that now, because I can't find that same statue online. I regret that big time. I guess I have to look in China for it, because I'm sure that's where it was made. Hey, Laura, good morning again. Thanks for hanging out. Lights, everybody. We're going to be signing off here in a minute. Low key, good morning. Says, I'm literally laughing. Vatican swag shop. I mean, they probably have discount codes too, so you should probably check that out. That'd be amazing. Who knows what you can
That way they can give Father Casey his discount code to get you to go online to the Vatican swag shop.
I'm sure at the very least you probably could get like the coffee table book of Rupnik art, probably autographed by the artist.
Oh, yeah.
Which I frankly, I will have to say this. I'm surprised that they didn't ask Rupnik to make the mascot. I mean, I think that's a snub, right? Like, that's a turn of events that they obviously now hate Rupnik. They didn't ask him to make the mascot.
He doesn't help them connect to the kids, to the pop culture.
Yep.
I mean, just think about what that says. Rupnik, you're so bad that not only are we not going to ask you to make this mascot, we're going to go to a porn artist to ask to make the mascot. That's how bad you are, Rupnik. But apparently, no matter what, he still gets to keep his faculties and his position. But Vigano, forget it. I mean, just that guy, forget that guy. Rupnik gets to continue to fight another day. Craig says, Pachamama on sale at the Vatican. I don't know, maybe the smaller ones. I think that no one buys the bigger ones. So maybe they have like the keychain versions there. You might want to ask about that. Who knows?
It should be a Pachamama bath toy.
It's probably a buy one, get one free too. So yeah, we'll get some for friends. Christmas is coming. Luce bobblehead, anyone? I bet that's already a thing. Probably the Luce bobblehead. Now, here's the question. Luce doesn't come alone. Luce has a dog, and Luce has friends. So you probably can collect. It's probably a collection. Probably got to collect all four.
I am waiting for the official Funko Pop collection. That's
it's gonna come.
I mean, if they're going to go there, they just go there. It's indulge in all the disordered inclinations of young people, including collecting things you don't need to that have no real value, like Funko Pops have no real value. But
and then sell them on eBay later for an upcharge. And then you got the green, yellow, red, and blue. Plus you got the dog, and you got the angel and the dove to collect. So you got some work to do to get your entire collection. And they're probably only going to come out with them once every Synod on Synodality meets at the Vatican, which is probably going to be from now until the second coming of Christ.
Sci-Fi Mike says Funko Pope. Funko
Actually,
Popes.
I'm pretty sure there's a Funko Pop of I think there's a Funko Pop of a Pope. You can go look that up, though.
I'm sure there is.
Statues of Martin Luther? Sure. Why not, Bruiser? Let's not be judgmental here, okay? It's an equal opportunity, and all are welcome. All are welcome in this
except
place. Hey, except for obviously Carla Maria Vigano and trads everywhere. And, the cardinal from Japan or from China, he's also not welcome. Hey, Matt Gaspers, God bless you. Thanks for hanging out, Dr. Stein. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk logistics on election night coverage. God bless you all. See you tomorrow.